The world looks to California to answer the hard questions, for redemption, to introduce the unfamiliar, to be resilient. Because California bounces back, holds us accountable, values who we are, remains vigilant, defies those in our way, and stands for community. Here on the West Coast, we're at the center of it all. Los Angeles Times, the state of what's next.
Good evening. I'm Justin Chang, film critic at the Los Angeles Times, and I do welcome you to week 12 of the Ultimate Summer Movie Showdown, the LA Times series where you, our readers, get to choose the greatest summer movies of all time. With theaters closed and major Hollywood releases being held back due to the COVID-19 pandemic, My Times colleagues and I asked ourselves, what if instead of having the worst summer movie season ever, we engaged with our readers and came up with the ultimate summer movie season? And so we've been doing just that for the past 13 weeks. Each week for 16 weeks, we are compiling some of the best, most memorable big movies from each week of release since 1975, the summer of Jaws. And we are letting all of you vote for your favorites in a series of head-to-head contests posted on my Twitter account, at Justin C. Chang. This week, you voted and you chose Clueless, Amy Heckerling's brilliantly entertaining 1995 romantic comedy starring Alicia Silverstone as Cher Horowitz, a way normal teenager from Beverly Hills. A contemporary update of Jane Austen's Emma that also featured performances from Stacey Dash, Brittany Murphy, Paul Rudd, among others. The film opened July 19th, 1995, to warm reviews and became one of the summer's sleeper hits. Heckerling's screenplay was named the best of the year by the National Society of Film Critics and received a nomination for Best Original Screenplay from the Writers Guild of America. The movie's influence on the look, the fashion, and especially the language of an entire generation of teenagers cannot be underestimated. And the past quarter century has only cemented its place in the pop cultural firmament and in the memories of those like myself who love it. I am so pleased to be joined tonight by none other than Amy Heckerling, the multi-talented writer and director of Clueless. She's also the creator of the Clueless TV series and wrote the book for the recent musical adaptation. She is also the director of movies like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Johnny Dangerously, and the writer and director of Look Who's Talking and Look Who's Talking 2. I am so thrilled to have her with us to talk about all things Clueless and other things. Amy Heckerling, welcome to the Ultimate Summer Movie Showdown.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here. Hi, how are you?
I'm so honored. This is when I heard about it, it was like, oh, wow, that's so cool that people voted for it. I mean, it was a long time ago.
Like it's and I love that we're doing this on the occasion of its 25th anniversary. Happy 25, Clueless. It's hard to believe.
Yeah.
I was there seeing, saw the movie the summer of 95. I was, back in theaters myself. So this is wonderful. And I think that, we'll talk about this, but just how beloved the movie is. But before we get to that, I know you're in New York, so thank you for joining us at a later hour than it is here in LA. But
no, I like that.
Yeah. How are things going? How are you? This is such a weird time for all of us. How are things holding up day by day?
I'm lucky because I have my family with me. So I have my daughter, and she actually had a baby in May in New York, and you couldn't go to the hospitals. It was too scary. And so she had it in the house. And wow. I have my mother that I'm caring for, and she's, going to be 89. And it's, frightening because she's like of the vulnerable group. So we've just been trying to scramble and keep up with the latest things that are, that you should be doing, and following the news, which is totally depressing, and for so many various reasons. And, then suddenly people were asking me to do different things about Clueless, and I'm going, I feel so like that's not a funny thing to be talking about now, but hey, you asked, so I'll do it.
We thank you so much for saying yes, and we need this movie right now for sure. So I think it's doing its work. And congratulations on the new addition to your family. That's wonderful.
Yeah, that makes it worthwhile.
This whole series is about summer movies, and you've made some great ones, especially Clueless and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I've been asking some of our guests about their impressions of just summer movie going. And I know you grew up in New York, steeped in movies, steeped in TV. Do you have any favorite summer movies yourself, or any particular summer movie going memories or just associations with that? Or is it all just a year-round blur of...
It's a year-round thing with me. I was, I went to film school, and before that I was in an art high school, but loved film. And I never thought, oh, that's a summer movie or not although once I came to Hollywood, there was this feeling that at first summer was something that counted less, because they figured summer is when people go on vacations and they're not thinking about movies. And so you put out, you cheesier stuff and stuff for kids. And they didn't realize like that's when you have a really big audience and that's where you put your good stuff. So that sort of shifted. Um, Maybe in the 80s. I think the like the Jaws and the ETs and those kinds of blockbusters made people realize that that was a money making time period. So they changed what they showed in summer. Although there's always still the feeling that summer you want to be either exciting or fun or sexy, but the cultural New Year starts in September, like, and then you get closer to the Academy, season, and that's your important films, and those are the classy ones that people take seriously. So if you have a film in the summer, it's supposed to be fun or entertaining, not serious.
I think too, it's funny, just one of the effects of the pandemic, of course, is it's thrown off our entire calendar. I mean, we have no summer movie season right now, and the fall classy, serious movie season, as you say, is also just being shaken up, and with everything being, it's a very weird, discombobulating time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm glad, I don't envy the people that have to try to figure it out because nobody knows what will be the new rules about how many people can be in a theater or what
Right.
will make it okay to be in a theater. And I know a lot of people working on Broadway, and that's taken a real hit. Like they don't know when, where, why, how that will ever come back. I mean, theater is like each ticket is very expensive, so you can't like have people 6 feet apart. And then backstage is all these. The actors aren't just on a screen, and they were doing things in some sort of safe way, if that exists. And but now you're just watching them. They're all squished together backstage, running around, changing clothes, interacting, and being close and tight quarters. So I don't know how long it will take or how things will come back. Hopefully this will be just a strange glitch that nobody, future generations won't even know happened. But it's really hard now on the studios, on the producers, on Broadway, on everybody.
It really is. And I was speaking with a critic colleague of mine today who went to see his first press screening, and he lives in London. And so in Europe, they're starting. I have friends in other European countries; they're starting to reopen, and it fills me with jealousy because even though it's bad everywhere, it didn't have to be this bad. So
It didn't have to be this bad, and I don't know if we will have the kind of guidance and leadership to get us back in the way other countries have. It's sad.
it's really sad. Let's talk about Clueless. We need a little ingestion of no, for sure. And speaking of theater too, and of course, it's as hard as it is on movie theaters, it's even harder on stage. Just the situation right now, and I know you were very much involved with the musical version, and you've been living and breathing this movie in various incarnations for 25 years. Just what's it like just looking back and seeing how beloved the movie is, and also just how adaptable it is to different media and clearly for different generations? I mean, it must be just kind of astounding.
Um, if I wanted to go, oh my God, this is amazing. Look how I made something that could be this or that or the, but it's it's not like you go around feeling like that. And also, it's hard to put it into different kinds of situations or different formats or different amounts of time. Um, but doing the show and having people respond that are sitting right there with you, and that was really exciting. But it was a small production, and we're looking towards expanding and changing some things. So I still get to live in that world, which is fun. But really, when you look at the character, which is so much of why it all exists and works, it's something that came from Jane Austen's brain that has lasted hundreds of years. So, got to say something about that. And completely timeless. I don't think when I read it in college and when I reread it again when I started thinking about it, um, it's going, yeah, that's like this or that, or that's how the girls do this, or that. It just was like, it was timeless. That person could be in any time period.
Absolutely. And when I first saw this movie 25 years ago myself, I had not read Emma. I have since read Emma, and it's, needless to say, a wonderful novel. One of the things that's so great about your script is that, in addition to being insanely quotable, you're watching it again this past week for the first time in years. You're really faithful to the very intricate plot construction of Emma. And I think it's one of her best just constructed novels. There's all these red herrings that Cher and slash Emma has to figure out. I mean, did you have a lot of fun just doing? I mean, I just think it's really just in terms of actually not just taking a concept, but really following it through and finding the contemporary equivalents of her situation.
Yeah, that was the fun thing, the equivalents, when you're going like, okay, so, it's raining and everybody has to decide who's going home from the ball and which carriage they'll be in. And, that means that you'll have some time alone in a carriage with somebody and anything can happen. And, well, you go, well, that's easy to contemporize. That's like, who's going on which freeway in which direction? Oh, so we're going to be with this one for that amount of time. And it wouldn't make sense to be driving that one home, theoretically. But it's your reasoning to get her alone. And that was just so much fun to be thinking in those terms. If you took, if you take West Side Story and you go, okay, here's this family and that family. Well, here's this group of people that came from Puerto Rico, and here's this group of people that were here a little bit earlier. And why do they hate each other? And what are they going to do about it? And, what happens when, how are they going to clash? And, it's a fun thing to do, to like look at great classics and think, I wonder how they would do that now. And oddly enough, after Clueless came out, there was suddenly like, oh, let's look at what great books has anybody read? And then they did 10 Things I Hate About You, which was Taming of the Shrew.
Yeah.
But there was like suddenly you see all these scripts that were based on some classic literature, and you go, that's always been there, and you're working in story, you should be thinking about this stuff all the time, but whatever. It was a trend.
It's funny too, because do you ever come across, because I didn't know that it was a loose adaptation of Emma when I first saw it. Do you still come across people who are surprised to find that this is the case, since it's not announced on screen or anything? I mean, it's sort of this little, if you know Emma, you know Clueless, but does it still, are there people who still don't know? I don't know.
I don't know about people now. When the script went out to all the studios, because the people I wrote it for weren't going to do it, and so it went out to all the places, all the big studios and production companies, and one person called me up and said, "Hey, did you ever read Emma?" And that was Amy Pascal, who was the head of, I think it was Sony at the time.
Yeah.
And it was like, wait a minute, out of all these people that have read this, nobody else picked that up. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't read every great classic, but I'm trying to make a little dent. And certainly, you would think people that are in the business of finding stories to put on the screen would, have a little more of that in their heads.
Yeah. We want to talk about Cher Horowitz. She's just such a fantastic character, and she's, of course, very much Emma Woodhouse. She also has a lot of the spirit of Jeff Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. In fact, is she sort of like a hybrid of the two in your mind? I mean, is that kind of her origin story? Are there other influences too?
Well, I wouldn't say she's a hybrid, but that was an influence, because when I would think of like, what do I really enjoy doing and what kind of character do I love seeing? Sorry, my brother's trying to call me. I would think Well, I really like the Spicoli character in Fast Times because um, he's so sure that everybody likes him and they're okay with any of the things he's doing, and it wouldn't occur to him that he's making people angry at him, that he's breaking rules, that he shouldn't be doing things. He's just optimistic, and it's not like he's not being mean, and I like that. And then I like the character in the movie Ed Wood because he was just very sure that he was really talented and he was having fun doing what he was doing. And I'm sure that there must have been people that reviewed his movies or whatever said they stunk, but it didn't get through to him. He was having fun, being positive. And from Laura Lee in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes in the book, she was pretty sure that all the men were in love with her. And, she just had to think of like how to get the most diamonds out of them. And, I like these characters that live in their own world and see everything through pink lenses, and it's all great and happy. So that has always been a lot of fun for me.
I mean, she's a great character, and she has that, as you say, incredible optimism and assurance. And I love this multifaceted aspect of her, where she is clueless, as the title tells us, of course, but she's also very intelligent and sophisticated and very perceptive in a lot of other ways. And that's just kind of a tricky needle to thread, the way, and just the way she uses language. And of course we can talk about just the incredible dialogue in the movie, but just threading that needle of making fun of her at times, but also she's the voice. She's the voiceover we hear. She is also sort of sending up herself. I don't know. It's just tonally, in terms of just the writing and just the portrayal. It's a really tricky balance to achieve. Yeah.
But once you get into her head, then it just goes, because there's always novels with what they call the faulty narrator. So it's not like the voice of God. It's the voice of that person. And you get into it, and it's not necessarily what the writer means. It's what the writer wants you to think that person is thinking. And that's a lot of fun to do. It's like, as a writer, you're also playing a character. So, yeah, you could do that.
Absolutely. Of course, I mean, I know there have been different actors who've played Cher, but the Alicia Silverstone, the first. Can you just talk about casting her? I mean, it's such a great and I think underappreciated performance. Just what was it about?
Yeah.
What was that spark that just when you saw her made you?
Well, I saw her in the Aerosmith videos, and I don't know, she just, won my heart. I just felt like, oh my God, she's cute and she's cool and she's hot looking, but there's something that made me like her a lot. The most I could think of is like when they would talk about Marilyn Monroe, it's not just that men all had the hots for her. It was that women liked her too. And there was a vulnerability or a sweetness or a optimism or something that made it not just be sexual. It's just like there's stuff about her that makes you like her. You just sense that you would like to hang out with her, that she's a sweet, wonderful person, and she is.
Yeah. And she has I mean, everyone in the movie has such a distinct way of expressing themselves, and the dialogue in this movie is, of course, the stuff of legend. And I know you can trace every word of it back to its source, but can you just talk about the research you put in, the inspiration you drew on to come up with this very distinct vernacular that the characters have?
Well, if I was going to write about what I know, it would all be everybody talking New Yorkers from the 60s. And, that's a very specific thing. And I wanted to make this happy world where all these different kinds of people are together. And I wanted to give them their own separate language. Of course, young people always do have their own separate language. Separates them from people that are older. And so I was going through well, of course, you always hang out in places, and I was like hanging out in schools as like research, and you're listening to people and you're having conversations with young people, but also, watching MTV and listening to a lot of song lyrics, and then different characters talking, and you know, I would like have slang for. It's not going to stop.
Oh.
And
No worries.
as my brother, it's his birthday. He's expecting a call.
Happy birthday to him.
Anyhow, like Christian wants to be part of the Rat Pack, so he's going to have a very specific slang that a lot of fun expressions I heard from old movies, which I love, like things from the 30s. But I also would look up, like Cab Calloway had a slang dictionary and listed all this musician slang. And UCLA has a linguistics department that publishes, current slang. So I was just compiling all these expressions that I wanted to give people, and also, Dion and Murray, they're like, they're fighting like an old Jewish couple. So I put in a lot of Yiddish from my parents, and I get it from all over the place and make this mishmash that I hoped people would understand it all.
This kind of linguistic melting pot. I mean, I was watching it again, and it was just kind of remarkable. Like, whatever. I mean, did Clueless coin that, or was it just just responding to a word, to something that was in circulation, and just even things like the very mock PC language that the characters use of ensembly challenged or hymenally challenged, and it's just so funny, the degree to which these lines and these words and these terms have sunk into our everyday lexicon, and it's so influential.
What is it? Hymenally challenged. It was there was sort of a PC phase where certain words became like verboten. Like you couldn't say somebody was handicapped; they had to be, capable, or they had to be like something or other challenged. And so the idea of anything wrong with you was that it wasn't to be labeled on you. It was supposed to be that you had the challenge of it. And so that kind of, I mean, I hate to say it, sounds nasty, but it cracks me up. Because you can pick a lot of things that would be a challenge. Like, am I supposed to be, accent challenged? Or is somebody who's short or tall, and you could put all the different things that you would find annoying about yourself or somebody else and say it's a challenge. It's not an insult. It's it's a new way of insulting in a roundabout way. And so I thought, how would you describe a virgin? Like she's got this challenge of this thing that has not been changed yet. So there was that. What was the other one? Whatever. A lot of my gay friends used that word. In the, I guess, early 90s, maybe late 80s. And they would, first it was like this, like for a W, but then they sort of like went beyond that. So two people would hold their, arms up and make a giant big whatever. But I went back to the regular whatevers because, nobody had gotten up to that point yet. And I know it was like listed, I forgot where there was some, dictionary or whatever, like the most annoying words of whatever 20th century, and that was number one. So I was very proud of that.
Should be, absolutely. It's just, it says it all. I mean, it's just so useful. So naturally, it's going to get repetitive. But I have to ask, of course, as if the movie's most famous response, what was the origin of that?
I was the same, from gay friends, they were using that expression.
Yeah. The the language in the movie is so precise in its cadences and its structure, and it feels just like the product of a vision that's very specific. As you're directing the actors, I mean, did any of it evolve to kind of approximate the actors' own styles and rhythms, or was it very much like you knew what you were after and they had to hit it, or is it kind of somewhere in between those two?
They pretty much went for it, and if anything, they came and brought more. So, I'm keeping it real. That came from Donald Faison, when he's like getting his head shaved, and she's mad, and what are you doing? And he goes, "I'm keeping it real." Um, so I love that phrase, and different things like that. They would come in with like, words that were.
Right.
I'd go, "Oh yeah, yeah."
So
Everybody was like, they were right there. They were fully loaded.
Yeah. So it did change a bit from time to, it's great. Yeah. Let's talk about just Paul Rudd too, who I believe this was his first film role. If I'm not, he'd done a lot of TV at that point, but and he is, of course, such a star now. I mean, and he's terrific in the movie. Can you talk about casting him and realizing he was the one to play Josh, the Mr. Knightley of the movie?
Yeah. I was really, worried because, there were a lot of people I saw, but I wasn't feeling it. And then when Paul came in and read, it was like, oh, okay, we're going to be okay. But we still had more people to see. So I didn't say, okay, you got it. It was just like, wow, we love you, blah, blah, blah. We were still in the casting process. And then I ran into him in a restaurant, and he had cut his hair really short. And I was like, what did you do? Because, I mean, I like his hair when he's got some, when there's more of it. But at the time, a lot of guys were going for the George Clooney kind of like Julius Caesar haircut, and it was never one of my favorite styles. So, but he was like, I didn't hear from you. I was like, yeah, we have more people to see. I loved you. You knew I loved you. But so he figured, oh, I'll cut my hair. And but in any case, he looks awfully cute. Didn't work out to be a problem.
He does, and it grew back, thankfully.
Yeah, a little.
A little. I wanted to ask too about the great and very fondly remembered Brittany Murphy. I think, even at the time, her performance was so very poignant and really endearing, and it feels even more so just with her passing. Can you talk about just her? She's another. There's so many, and this is very true of your whole career, Amy. You've discovered some amazing actors and brought them to us. So thank you for that. But I mean, can you talk about Brittany in particular? Yeah.
Oh, Brittany. I mean, she was so adorable. She just like, everybody wanted to adopt her. She was just so sweet and, you just vulnerable and quirky. And she just was perfect. I can't imagine anybody else doing that. And her mother was sick at the time, and she was always on the set. And it was just, she was such a good-hearted person. It just came through, which was like all the more shocking when she says, "You're a virgin who can't drive," because it's like,
yes. Oh
my God, what did I do to her? Because you know who she is and what she was. So, other people, it would have seemed like snarky and, just another girl bitch line.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you brought up that scene, which, I mean, I have to tell you, it's, it had been a while, but that is, a scene from the movie that stayed with me so. And of course, Cher's rejoinder, that was way harsh, Ty. I mean, these are lines that people quote at each other often, but it's like, I remember when I saw that movie, that scene for the first time, it was, it's really quite wrenching because you're seeing two people, you're absolutely right. It doesn't feel snarky. You're seeing two people who really like each other and who are good people they're very decent people, but and it feels, the emotion there and the tension feels real. And of course, this all, that goes, of course, back to Jane Austen. I mean, they didn't say, that was way harsh, whatever it's in the Austen novel. But it's really, it's really grounded in something real. That scene.
Yeah, because I mean, from Ty's point of view, it was like, I'm so excited and happy, and you're the one that's been helping me turn into this person who could get this really worthy guy. And now to see that you don't think I should be with him because you don't really think I'm that great. Um, and it's just like, pouring cold water over everything good that's happened to her. And so she has to back out, and and then for Cher to feel like, oh my God, what have I turned her into? She was so sweet, and wow, what I've I'm created a monster. Maybe I'm horrible, and what I think I'm doing good, I'm doing a horrible thing. So it's really sad for both of them. Um, and that's why it's so sweet when they get back together, because you want them to be friends. You don't want her to go, well, I guess that was silly of me to think that she was anything. You want that to be genuine.
It really is genuine, and I love that it happens at the skateboarding event too. And yeah, and just, well, and also the line to, you're a virgin who can't drive. I mean, it's really, it really hits at Cher's. Cher is super popular. She's queen bee in a lot of ways, but it hits at these particular insecurities that she has, and it's kind of this reminder that she has them too, and they're very particular too. So, but yeah, Amy, you, just going back to just the talent you've discovered, I mean, some, not just in Clueless with Alicia and Paul, but also, Sean Penn in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Jennifer Jason Leigh, many of them who were unknown at the time. And it's very moving to rewatch these movies and to see how fresh-faced and young everyone was. And, just as I know I've asked you a lot about casting, but I just think it's so important, and you do it so well. I mean, is there always, I guess I should, was there the sense like, oh, I know this person's going to be a star, or is it usually just, we'll see where this goes? I mean, what is that?
No, it's not like, oh, you think they're going to be a star. It's just like, something about them really gets to you, and you really love them, and you really want to see them doing things. But even before I was working in films, I would go to the movies and see some people that I thought, oh, wow, that guy's great, or oh, I want to see her in more things. And be writing down, I was compiling lists of people that I wanted to, follow, or maybe someday get to work with, that weren't stars yet. There was one movie, what was it? The Lords of Flatbush. But it had, this big burly guy, and he, but then he had to get an engagement ring for his girlfriend, and it was too much for him. But then everybody started treating him like he was a big shot, and he just started glowing. And that was Sylvester Stallone. Oh. And then there was the nerdy guy in it. And, you saw he was with these guys, but there was something about him that felt like it should be somewhere else. He's different. And that was Henry Winkler. And I remember I was a kid and writing down those names, like, wow, that one and that one. So you do that all the time. You see things and you like people, you respond to them, and you want to know. Yeah.
Absolutely. In Clueless, the verbal distinctiveness of the movie is, I think, matched visually as well. I mean, it's just really great work done by the cinematographer, Bill Pope, and your production designer, Stephen Jordan, and especially the costume designer, Mona May. It's just terrific. And I have to say, too, just watching it, just streaming on Netflix the other night, I mean, the movie looks just terrific. I mean, it's really, you clearly just took such care in designing every frame of this universe. And you just talk about it must have been really fun, but also really rigorous in terms of figuring out her style and the world that she inhabits. Yeah.
Well, working with Mona is just like really fun to do, because it's like, okay, what's she going to wear? What's he going to wear? But she'd be wearing that, but he should be wearing this, but his character would be more like that. No, he'd be like those guys that, so that's just an extension of, playing cutout dolls when we were little. That was just fun. Um, and, thinking about like the overall look, like what's everybody wearing? What are the colors? And then what are the things that are going to make Cher pop and Dion pop? And then where is Christian coming from? And
Right.
where is he getting that style from? So if he's decided he's like, you know, uh, learning swing dancing and, talking like he's Sinatra, but what's the clothing style that he's going to want to have? Um, and then also the girls that are just,
Yeah.
the background kind of thing of like what's everybody into, what style do they all follow, but adapt a little bit for themselves. Um, and at that point there was a lot of people that have come, Persians in Beverly Hills High School, and they were sort of together all the time, being outsiders, and what was their style and what did they bring to everything. And then Josh coming from college, what's the deal there? What was the what political coffee shop kind of grungy thing were they all wearing? So that was just like a lot of fun.
And I understand you were living in Los Angeles at the time, of course, making this. What was it? Just as a native New Yorker, just how long had you been there, and what was it like? Just I guess designing Clueless just as an LA movie too, and a Beverly Hills movie. I mean, was there just? Yeah.
Well, I never really assimilated into like LA-ness,
Yeah.
but I was always like sort of fascinated with what people were doing and wearing and where they were all going and what they were into, and it just like it felt like, what's with everybody? I don't get it. And maybe it was just like I didn't get the 80s, the 90s, and the zeros, but when you feel like you're an outsider, you're just looking at people like going, what's that all about? You know?
Yeah.
One year they're all into some sort of gourmet food. The next year they're all going to poetry slams, and it's like, what? What's with everybody?
It almost becomes a kind of anthropological exercise, right? Kind of these. I mean, a lot of teen comedies work, and just teen movies in general work in that way. Sort of the American teenager.
Any movies, yeah. I mean, they are traditionally made by, or written at least by, people that feel like outsiders.
Speaking of outsiders, I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I wanted to ask you this, if I may. Just you've spoken about this before, and I wanted to ask you just about the challenges of being, a woman in film and in comedy, two worlds that have historically been so male-dominated. You, I think, were such a trailblazer in the 80s and 90s at a time when there were not enough women directing mainstream movies. Nowadays, there's still not enough women directing mainstream movies or just movies in general, but it feels as though some progress has been made, especially kind of post Me Too and everything, or during Me Too rather. Just you can talk about, is it from your standpoint? I mean, just can you talk about just the difficulties of that, and does it look like it's gotten better? Any meaning?
Well,
heavy question, I know. Sorry.
It's not necessarily gotten better for me, but I guess, there was always that feeling of like your agent will say, okay, we could take it here and we could take it there, but we can't take it to Disney because they already have their female movie. And, so you feel like you're in competition with every other woman, because if you get something, they can't have it, and vice versa. Because they were giving out very little of it. And there was a lot of girls can't do this, girls don't know what's funny, girls can't do action, girls. And I mean, my attitude, for better or worse, was, I didn't start a Me Too movement. I would just be going, I don't want to hear. I'm just going to try to do what I need to do and make it happen by some sort of sheer force of will, because nobody else wants what I want to do to happen. So I've got to like keep that vision and just plow through. And all the negative stuff that they're saying, I'm not going to listen to. I'm going to, when you go, and you're not listening and just like, don't let it in. And it's out there, but I didn't want to let it in.
You're someone who, just naturally puts women front and center in your movies. But I know that with that, sometimes you run the risk of being typecast as, oh yeah, the woman director who writes only women characters. I mean, it must be so hard to have that balance to do something that you're good at, but also to convince people that it's not the only thing that you're good at and the only thing that you're interested in. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when I was writing Look Who's Talking, I knew that nobody cares about a woman and she has a baby. It's like, so what? And whoever the woman would be, it'd be like, oh, female. But, if you want to do a comedy, you needed like Bill Murray or a handful of other people that they would trust to deliver a comedy. And I knew that I was not so big that I could get one of those people. But maybe I could get them for a few hours. And so if it was the voice of the baby and the baby was the star, then you could have a big star for only a couple of hours of work. And so I felt like I could be seeming to be doing a boy movie when I'm not.
Yeah. You have to be kind of stealthy in some ways, right? And resourceful.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Just slide in under.
That movie holds up beautifully too. I mean, is it true? I had read this somewhere that you went in an early, draft stage of when Clueless was still a TV pilot or whatnot. Was there pressure to make it more gender balanced, focus less on the female characters and more on the men? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the feeling
kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, we want to see what's going on with the boys. For a long time, it was like the law that movies were driven. The audience was young boys, and that was the box you wanted to tick off. And like, who likes this? Older women, younger men, older boys. And so you wanted young males. That was important. And so they were saying, well, okay, but you have all this stuff with Cher. And what about Josh? Like, what if he was living next door? And what if we saw what was going on in his house and with his family and blah, blah, blah. And then you'd see the boys without the girls. And I was like, well, but I'm inside her head. How am I doing that? I can't do that. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, not that there isn't wonderful movies about boys and their lives and girls and their lives, but that wasn't this one.
Right. Yeah. And so you just had to kind of stick with it until you found people to back.
Until they say, we're not making it then, so goodbye. And you go, oh, okay.
Yeah. We have just a couple of reader questions, and I'm going to turn over to them really soon, but I have one last question for you before we do. We were talking about this before the show started. This week's Showdown came down to Clueless versus Aliens, the second in the series, directed by James Cameron. Two women-led films, which is great. And I know you mentioned you're a fan of these movies. What do you think about Cher taking down Ripley? I mean, what would you vote for, Amy? You vote for Clueless or Alien?
I know Sigourney Weaver. I worked with her, and she's like amazing, and she's like, she's so badass. It's an entirely different universe.
Absolutely.
And of course, any movie with Paul Reiser and Bill Paxton, who was wonderful, you got to have a lot of love for. But it was so great to see a woman beating the shit out of, a horrible monster. And then, of course, later on realizing that's a mother and this is a mother and, what you'll do for your offspring. And, I love that stuff. But what I really loved was when the thing came out of his stomach. That was the coolest. One of my favorite images on film. And I saw it with my parents, and my father, who has ulcers. And when he saw that, he was like, oh, because he goes, that's how I feel. It's like, and then when, of course, Mel Brooks did it in Spaceballs, it's like,
Right.
Suddenly, and it comes out and does a musical number.
Wonderful. Well, it was great because Clueless beat Aliens this week, but several weeks ago, Ridley Scott's Alien won. So Clueless isn't. They're in great company. It's just I love that the movies that this series has put into conversation with each other. So that's just great.
I like that's nice company to be in.
Absolutely, all around. I think we have a couple reader questions. These are about Clueless for Amy. Let's pull up the first one. I think it'll display on the screen. Hang on. This question's from Jonathan. What about the Jeep? Why a Jeep?
You know what? I didn't really think about that. I knew I wanted something that was stylish, that she would be like proud of. It was kind of a little statusy thing, but still girl friendly. And it was a convertible, which I don't never go in because I'm crazy. But visually, you'd be able to see her. You could do a shot that goes over her head and stuff, and that was really cool. And it really, there's no reason. I like it. Looked cute. I'm not a car person, so
it looks.
What do I know?
And it has four-wheel drive too. Good for testing. All of that.
It wasn't an electric car, which is what I would have preferred, but they didn't really, have a lot of that then.
No, it's gotten better since. We have one more question from a reader. Let's take a look from Christine. Did the studio want a sequel to Clueless?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't want to see, Clueless Goes to College. It's, I understand they're doing a TV series in the vein of Riverdale, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like murder mystery, like dark.
Oh yeah.
And Cher is missing, and Dion is,
Oh, that's right. Yes, I read about this. Yeah. It's like a Veronica Mars meets Clueless kind of thing. I don't know, but then of course, with the TV series Clueless, which I watched as often as or as more so than I did the movie, even growing up. That was another chance, of course, to explore that world, right, and to tell more. Different stories.
It was like a chance to hang out in Clueless Land, which is a very happy place. But I didn't have Alicia, who is the heart and soul of it all. But you're rushing through it really fast, and you're getting notes from networks and stuff. But all in all, it was fun, and to keep it going with Stacey Dash and Sean Holland and Donald Faison, and it was fun to work with them, and Wally Shawn and Twink. So it was like, I was having fun. There was, I hope people watch it. Who the hell knows?
Well, Amy, it's been a pleasure to revisit Clueless Land with you, and I hope we will always go back to that place, and because it's a happier world to live in than ours at present. So thank you for being here, and thank you to our Times readers for voting on the summer movies this week, and thank you for watching. And for watching Clueless 2 on the occasion of its 25th anniversary, and sharing your questions. And I'm going to give, before we sign off, I'm just going to give a quick preview of week 13, which the voting closed yesterday. And there were 16 movies in contention in week 13. A lot of comedies too. Animal House, Caddyshack, Vacation, Kingpin, Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. It came down to a lot. It's been a fun mashup of movies every week. But you voted, and it came down to two final movies: Caddyshack and Mission Impossible: Fallout. Two chase movies, I guess you could say. But you voted, and a lot of you love Caddyshack, but more of you in the end love Mission Impossible: Fallout, which is your week 13 winner in the Ultimate Summer Movie Showdown. So please join us next week when we'll be talking about Fallout. We go from Clueless to Mission Impossible, to what, I don't know next, Amy, but this is this ping-ponging series we've been doing. So, but
it's very cool.
Congratulations on winning, and thank you again so much for being here with us. And thank you to everyone for watching. And I wish you all the best this next week. And good night.
Good night.